Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio, Story 25.
Imagine this. You are traveling for work, or maybe you are heading off to a new city for graduate school.
Oh, yeah. And you are trying to stick to a severely tight budget.
Exactly. You are looking for a place to crash for the night, and you stumble upon what seems like, well, the ultimate, completely unbelievable travel hack.
Right.
You find this gorgeous, sprawling, historic property. I mean, we are talking majestic architecture, stunning courtyards, absolutely beautiful grounds.
It's perfect.
And the best part, it is completely 100% free. You just have to let yourself in. You'd think you hit the jackpot, right?
You really would.
But then, as the sun goes down, you realize exactly why the place was just sitting empty. The catch isn't that there's a broken heater or, like, a lumpy mattress.
No, the catch is much worse.
Yeah, the catch is that the previous guests were systematically hunted down, trapped, and drained of their blood by a supernatural entity.
It is the ultimate bait and switch. And the beauty of the architecture, the sheer convenience of the free room, all of that is meticulously designed to lure in a very specific type of traveler.
Exactly. And that incredibly terrifying scenario is where we are starting today, into an absolute foundational classic of supernatural literature.
A really amazing one, too.
Yeah, we have a stack of notes and translations here from a masterpiece called Liao Zaizi, which translates to Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio. This is the legendary story of a character named Nia Shaoqian.
Which is a narrative that really defies simple categorization. I mean, when you get into the mechanics of this world, you realize it is operating on multiple levels simultaneously.
It really does. It demands a lot from you as a reader.
It absolutely does.
And that is what I want to unpack today, is to figure out how this one story manages to flawlessly weave together so many different genres.
Yeah, the genre matching is incredible.
You start reading it, and it feels like a straightforward supernatural horror story. But then suddenly it pivots into a high-octane martial arts thriller.
Right. And then completely out of nowhere, it evolves into a deeply moving domestic drama.
Yeah. But beneath all of those shifts, the core engine driving the narrative is, it's a profound test. It uses ghosts and demons to probe the absolute limits of human morality.
Personal integrity, too. And ultimately, the mechanics of redemption.
Which is so fascinating.
Because the supernatural elements you just mentioned, the ghosts, the monsters, the flying swords, they aren't there merely for atmospheric effect.
Right. They aren't just set dressing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They function as a stress test for the human soul. The monsters in this universe are highly specialized predators, and they prey on very specific psychological and moral weaknesses.
Meaning if you don't have those weaknesses, their weapons actually cannot touch you.
That's exactly how it works.
Which means, before we can even talk about the ghosts and the monsters, we have to talk about the prey. Or, well, in this specific case, the one guy who absolutely refuses to become prey.
Right, because if the monsters hunt using your own moral failings against you, you need to understand the exact psychological profile required to survive.
So let's introduce our main character. This is Ning Keichen.
Ning is a scholar from Zhejiang, and right from the beginning, his psychological profile is laid out with surgical precision.
He is described as generous and upright, right?
Yes, but his most crucial defining characteristic is an unyielding moral strictness. He actually has a personal motto that he proudly tells people, like a rule he lives his life by.
Right. He frequently states that he has never had a second woman.
Which is a big deal in that context.
Yeah, in the context of his era, he is announcing that he is strictly, immovably faithful, and completely disciplined in his desires.
He is incredibly rigid about his personal virtue.
And that rigidity is his defining trait. He is someone who polices his own internal landscape with an iron fist.
Within the cosmology of this world, this isn't just a quirky personality trait or a point of pride. It's his primary defense mechanism.
Even if he doesn't realize it yet, right?
Exactly.
I was actually trying to picture someone like Ning in the real world today. He's like that one friend you have who is so stubbornly principled it almost borders on irritating.
Oh, totally.
Imagine you're at a massive, multinational corporate coffee shop, and the cashier accidentally hands your friend an extra dime in change.
Ning is the guy who insists on holding up the line for 5 minutes to give the dime back because, it's the principle of the thing.
Yes, he is completely immovable. If he believes the thing is right, there is absolutely zero gray area.
He simply does not compromise. And that uncompromising nature is immediately put to the ultimate test by his environment.
Because he's traveled to a place called Jinhua to take his civil service exams.
Right, and the city is crowded, the inns are prohibitively expensive, and he desperately needs a place to study and sleep.
Enter the free, gorgeous, highly suspicious real estate Lanru Temple.
Lanru Temple. It is painted as a vivid, entirely contradictory space.
How so?
Well, on one hand, it is magnificent. The halls and the towers are structurally grand and beautiful. But on the other hand, it is completely abandoned to nature.
Oh, like reclaimed by the wild.
Exactly. The wild weeds are growing as tall as a person. There's a massive pond where wild lotus flowers are blooming unchecked, and thick, towering bamboo groves block out the sun.
That sounds beautiful, but also really creepy.
It's breathtaking, but it's completely silent. It is a place where human civilization has been entirely reclaimed. And in this cosmology, a place abandoned by human vitality, by yang energy, naturally becomes a pooling spot for yin energy.
Shadows, spirits, the unknown.
Exactly.
It's the ultimate horror movie setup. I mean, everyone else in the bustling town knows to stay far, far away from the creepy, abandoned temple on the edge of the woods.
But Ning takes one look at it and thinks, wow, the rent is zero, and the lack of neighbors is fantastic.
Right. If you consider Ning's character, his decision to stay there tells you everything you need to know about his extreme pragmatism.
He isn't deterred by the eerie atmosphere at all. In fact, he finds the deep, quiet, and isolation actively pleasing.
Which really highlights a fearlessness that stems directly from his strict rationality. He's there to study, he needs quiet, and he doesn't want to spend money.
The overgrown weeds and the ghostly silence simply do not factor into his logical equation. He doesn't register the supernatural threat because he doesn't believe in letting irrational fear dictate his actions.
So he's settling in. He makes a makeshift bed out of some straw and a wooden board, fully planning to stay a while. But it turns out he's not the only living person who figured out this real estate loophole.
No, he's not. As the sun goes down, another traveler opens the door to the southern courtyard.
And this brings us to Yan Chixia.
Right, Yan Chixia. He's another scholar originally from Shaanxi, a region historically referred to as Qin.
And you would think two guys meeting in an abandoned, overgrown temple in the middle of nowhere, they'd bond immediately.
You would think so, yeah.
But their meeting is incredibly awkward. Ning goes over to introduce himself. Very polite, very formal.
And Yan tells him he doesn't own the place. He's just a traveler too, and basically says, if you can stand the desolation, I'd be happy to have your company.
Which makes Ning thrilled, thinking he's got a study buddy. They sit together on the temple corridor under this bright, clear, water-like moonlight. They exchange names.
Ning tries to figure out where Yan is from because his accent isn't local.
Yeah, and Yan gives a very plain, sincere answer, and then the conversation just completely dies.
They exhaust their words, politely bow to each other, and simply go to sleep.
I have to pause on this for a second because I really struggle to understand their reaction here. You have these two guys alone in a massive, creepy ruin.
Right.
If you or I were in that situation, we'd be clinging to each other, swapping life stories, or at least talking about how unsettling the shadows are.
Definitely.
So why do they just shut down and go to bed? Is it just social awkwardness, or is there something deeper happening here?
It's definitely deeper than social awkwardness. Think about the era and the philosophical ideals these men are embodying.
Okay.
Neither of these men is driven by the modern need for constant external validation or nervous chatter to fill a silence. They are both highly self-contained individuals.
So they don't need small talk.
Exactly. They possess a profound internal stillness. And that self-containment is going to be vital.
Why is that?
Because when you are constantly talking, constantly projecting your energy outward, you are distracted. Their silence is a form of spiritual conservation.
Oh, wow.
And they're going to need every ounce of that energy because the quiet of the temple is about to be broken.
Right. So Ning is back in his new room. He's tossing and turning on his straw bed. The environment is unfamiliar. The board is hard. And then he hears voices coming from the north side of the temple.
It sounds like a family whispering in the dark.
Yeah, so Ning gets up and peeks through a small stone window lattice in the north wall.
What he sees through that little stone grid is a small courtyard. In the moonlight, he spots three figures.
There's a woman who looks to be in her 40s. There's an old, hunched-over woman wearing faded red clothing. And then a little bit later, a young girl joins them.
She's maybe 17 or 18, and she is described as absolutely stunning, breathtakingly beautiful.
This is Xiaoqian.
Yes, and pay close attention to the dialogue Ning overhears here. It is incredibly cryptic.
If you don't know what they are, they just sound like a family gossiping, right?
Exactly. But once you understand the context, it is deeply sinister. They aren't talking like a mother and daughter. They are talking about Xiaoqian as if she is a tool, an asset to be deployed.
Yeah, the old woman in the faded red dress makes this really bizarre comment. She says, Xiaoqian is pretty enough to be in a painting.
And then she adds, even if I, an old woman, were a man, my soul would be snatched away by her.
It's just such a weird thing to say.
Consider the phrasing, though. My soul would be snatched away. In common parlance, that's just a metaphor for being captivated by beauty.
Right, like being head over heels.
But in this specific environment, it is a literal description of their operational mechanics. They were discussing her hunting capabilities.
Oh, I see.
Ning, however, being the hyper-rational scholar, filters this through his own worldview. He assumes they're just the family of some neighbor living adjacent to the temple ruins.
He rationalizes the strained undertones, goes back to bed, and simply stops listening.
But the conversation doesn't stop, and it certainly doesn't dismiss him.
No, it doesn't. Just as he's drifting off to sleep, he senses someone enter his room. He jumps up, and it's the beautiful teenage girl from the courtyard. It's Xiaoqian.
And she doesn't beat around the bush.
Not at all. She explicitly offers herself to him. She tells him, the mood is bright and I can't sleep. I want to share my intimacy with you.
Now imagine almost any other protagonist in this situation. A lonely traveler, a dark temple, a sudden, illicit proposition from a beautiful stranger. The trap is perfectly sprung.
But the trap wasn't built for someone like Ning Keqian.
No, it wasn't.
He doesn't just awkwardly decline. He goes into full-blown moral lecture mode. He immediately puts on his sternest face, draws a line in the sand, and says, you should fear what people will say, and I fear the gossip. One misstep, and all sense of shame and morality is lost.
Notice how he frames his defense there. He is grounding his refusal in a mixture of societal ethics and rigid personal virtue.
He's not even tempted.
He views the temptation not as a lucky opportunity, but as an aggressive, direct threat to his core identity.
And Xiaoqian tries to counter this. She uses the classic foolproof logic of temptation. She says, it's the middle of the night, no one will ever know.
But Ning doesn't budge an inch.
He scolds her again, and when she hesitates, he literally threatens to yell for his neighbor, Yan Chixia, to come over and witness what she's doing. He treats her exactly like a burglar trying to break into his house.
Which is precisely what she is. She is trying to break into his moral architecture to dismantle his spiritual defenses.
So she retreats, genuinely frightened by the sheer intensity of his righteousness.
But the trap has secondary mechanisms. As she's leaving, she tries a completely different angle of attack.
She slips back into the room and leaves an ingot of pure gold on his bed linen.
It's like a supernatural phishing scam.
Exactly. You didn't click the link for the romance angle. Okay, well, please accept this totally legitimate gold bar as a consolation prize.
It is a secondary exploit in the monster's hunting algorithm. If the victim's shield against lust is impenetrable, perhaps their shield against greed is weak.
The predator is probing his perimeter, looking for any microfracture in his character.
But Ning's reaction to the gold is even more violent than his reaction to the seduction.
He picks up the gold and literally hurls it out into the courtyard, and he shouts after her, "This is unjust, dirty money. It soils my pockets."
He acts as if the gold itself is physically contaminated.
He doesn't even want it touching his travel gear.
This is a foundational moment for understanding the physics of this universe. Xiaoqian is standing out in the dark courtyard, picking up the rejected gold. And she mutters to herself, "This man must be made of iron and stone."
What does she mean by that exactly? Just that he's stubborn?
It goes beyond stubbornness. In this cosmology, human integrity isn't just an abstract philosophical concept that you debate in a classroom. It is a literal, tangible, physical shield.
So his morals are literal armor.
Exactly. Ming's absolute lack of lust and his absolute lack of greed render him completely impervious to the supernatural mechanics of the trap.
That is so cool.
The monsters in this ecosystem cannot just attack anyone they want. They require a metaphysical invitation. And that invitation is always written in the language of a human moral failing.
If you don't commit the failing, the door stays locked.
Precisely.
Okay, so if moral failing is the invitation, what happens to the guys who do open the door?
We find out the very next morning.
Right. Another scholar arrives at the temple to take his exams, bringing his servant with him. They set up camp in the eastern wing of the temple, and overnight, the scholar dies a sudden, totally silent, violent death.
When they find the body, the evidence is highly specific and deeply unsettling. On the soles of his feet, there is a tiny hole, described as looking like the prick of a sharp awl.
And from this tiny puncture wound, blood is slowly, steadily seeping out. No one in the town can explain it.
And it doesn't stop there. The next night, the scholar's servant dies in the exact same mysterious way. Small hole in the foot, blood completely drained.
It is a terrifying escalation. Ning goes to his neighbor, Yan Chixia, and asks what he thinks is happening.
Yan is completely deadpan. He just looks at him and says, "It's demons."
Just casually drop that. And Ning, protected by his wall of rationality, basically shrugs it off.
He is naturally unyielding and straight-laced, so he pays it little mind. He feels entirely secure in his own righteousness.
He simply cannot conceive of a world where shadows can hurt a good man.
But that illusion of safety shatters when Xiaoqian returns to his room later that night.
This time, her demeanor is completely different. She isn't there to seduce him, and she isn't carrying any gold. She's there to confess.
She looks at him and says, "I have seen many men, but never one with a heart as hard as yours. You are truly a sage, and I cannot deceive you anymore."
She strips away the illusion entirely.
She reveals her true nature and the grim reality of Lanruo Temple. She is a ghost. She died when she was only 18 and was buried near the temple grounds.
But she isn't acting of her own free will, right? She isn't just haunting travelers for fun.
No, she is enslaved by a monstrous ancient demon forced to perform these degrading acts to lure men to their deaths. She states clearly that this existence brings her no joy, but she is physically and spiritually coerced by this entity.
And she finally lays out exactly how the murder mechanics work, which perfectly explains the bodies in the Eastern Wing.
Right. She explains that when men give in to her seduction and become intimate, she secretly pierces their feet with an invisible awl.
This act leaves them dazed and paralyzed, dropping their energetic defenses, allowing the demon to come in and drink their blood.
Now consider the gold she offered Ning. She explains that the gold isn't actually gold.
What is it?
If a man takes it, he is actually accepting a piece of Rakshasa ghost bone.
Oh, wow.
By accepting the illusion of wealth out of greed, he engages in a form of sympathetic magic. He creates a physical, energetic link with the demonic realm that allows the monster to literally reach in and extract his heart and liver.
That is horrifying. If you give in to lust, you lose your physical vitality, your blood. If you give in to greed, you lose your core, your heart.
Exactly. Let's unpack the why here. Why use seduction and fake gold at all? Why doesn't the demon just break the door down?
Yeah, why the complicated traps?
Because in this spiritual ecology, a human being possesses a strong, innate yang energy, a natural barrier against yin entities like ghosts and demons.
So the monster can't just barge in.
The monster itself does not have the power to simply shatter the aura of a righteous person. It requires the victim to lower their own spiritual drawbridge through a conscious moral compromise.
So Ning survived those first 2 nights solely because he lacked both the requisite flaws.
The monster's algorithm kept bouncing off his firewall.
But here's where the story pivots from a slow burn thriller into an immediate survival crisis.
Xiaoqian tells him that because the other scholars are dead, the temple is completely out of easy prey.
The demon is starving, which means it is getting desperate, and it's going to stop playing by the rules of temptation.
She warns Ning that tomorrow night, the demon isn't going to send a beautiful girl. This is going to send a yaksha, a fearsome, hyper-violent monster to kill him by sheer force.
The rules of engagement have fundamentally changed. Ning's moral shield protected him from the psychological traps, but it will not protect his physical body from a direct, brute force assault by a desperate, starving demon.
Integrity won't stop a claw.
Yeah.
He needs a completely different kind of protection.
So Ning is rightfully terrified. I mean, the rationality is gone. He is in sheer survival mode. He asks Xiaoqian how he can possibly survive this.
And she tells him something that completely flips his understanding of the world.
She says his only hope is to go share a room with the quiet, socially awkward guy next door, Yan Chixia.
This is a brilliant narrative pivot. Xiaoqian reveals that she and the other spirits cannot even approach Yan Chixia.
Why not?
She describes him as a strange man or a peculiar person. In the original language, this terminology implies someone of immense, perhaps otherworldly power and virtue.
So his spiritual gravity is so dense it repels them.
Exactly.
Ning realizes he has been trying to make small talk with a secret powerhouse this whole time. So the next day, Ning goes into overdrive.
He makes sure Yan doesn't leave the temple.
He cooks him a lavish meal, buys him drinks, and tries to casually, naturally suggest they bunk together for the night.
And Yan, staying perfectly true to his established stoic character, tries to politely decline. He makes excuses about liking his solitude, having peculiar sleeping habits, and generally just not wanting a roommate.
But Ning is fighting for his life here. He doesn't take no for an answer. He literally forces his way into Jan's room, dragging his bedroll with him.
Jan realizes he can't get rid of Ning without being incredibly aggressive and rude, so he sighs and gives in. But he gives Ning a very specific, highly intense warning.
Jan points to a small luggage box, a satchel that he has placed deliberately on the windowsill. He looks at Ning and says, "I know you are a true gentleman, so I will be blunt. I have a secret I cannot share right now, but whatever you do, do not secretly look inside my luggage box. If you do, it will be disastrous for both of us."
Now, when you read that, you have to ask, why does Jan warn him specifically about the box?
Right, if the box is that dangerous, why leave it on the windowsill? Is he just testing Ning to see if he's a snooper, or is there a functional, magical reason Ning can't open it?
It is entirely functional. In the traditions of Chinese esoteric practices, powerful magical artifacts are essentially highly radioactive batteries of yang energy.
Okay.
They require strict containment and isolation. The spiritual radiation from such an object could be physically or mentally harmful to an uninitiated mortal whose energy channels aren't prepared for it.
That makes sense.
Furthermore, opening the box without the proper incantations or intent might break the protective seal, disrupting Jan's control over whatever is inside and causing it to misfire.
He needs Ning to obey purely on trust, because explaining the mechanics of spiritual containment would take years.
Exactly.
So night falls, and the tension in the scene is masterfully built. You have Jan Shixia, who almost immediately falls asleep and starts snoring like a thunderstorm. He is completely unbothered.
And then you have Ning, who is wide awake, paralyzed on his mat, staring at the stone window, knowing a bloodthirsty demon is actively hunting him.
The contrast is striking. The atmosphere gets incredibly tense. And then, around the first watch of the night, Ning sees a shadowy figure outside the window.
The shadow creeps closer to the stone window lattice. Ning can see its eyes flashing and blinking in the dark.
It's right there. He is absolutely terrified. He opens his mouth, just about to shout and wake Jan up.
And then, before Ning can even force a sound out of his throat, the defense mechanism triggers.
Suddenly, something bursts out of Jan's luggage box on the sill, physically tearing through the fabric. It is described as a blinding white light, shining as brilliantly as a bolt of pristine white silk.
It shoots out of the box, smashes right through the solid stone window lattice, violently strikes whatever is lurking outside, and then zips right back into the box like lightning.
It happens in a fraction of a second. The sheer kinetic energy of the description is wild.
The noise of the shattering stone and the intense flash of light finally wake Jan up.
Ning immediately pretends to be asleep so he can secretly watch what happens next. Jan gets up, goes to the window, and opens the torn luggage box.
And he pulls out a sword.
But it's not a giant broadsword or a typical weapon. It is a miniature sword. It's only about 2 inches long and maybe the width of a single leek leaf.
But it is glowing with a crystal clear, intensely white light.
Jan holds it up to the moonlight, sniffs the tiny blade, and mutters to himself, "There is demon energy on this."
Then he carefully wraps it back up in multiple layers of thick cloth and puts it back in the broken box, grumbling under his breath about how the old demon was bold enough to ruin his luggage.
This reveal completely recontextualizes who Jan Shixia is. He isn't just an introverted scholar wandering the countryside.
No, he is a secret sword master, a practitioner of esoteric martial arts and high-level magic, what the tradition would call a janke, or a sword immortal.
Okay, we have to pause and explain how this actually works. How does a 2-inch sword fly out of a box and smash through a stone wall on its own?
It operates on the concept of externalizing one's ki, or vital energy.
Right.
A sword immortal spends decades cultivating their internal energy and forging a profound energetic link with a specific physical object, in this case, the miniature sword.
So the sword is like an extension of himself.
Exactly. The sword isn't just a piece of metal. It acts as a physical conduit for Jan's will and his highly concentrated yang energy. When a massive concentration of hostile yin energy the demon approaches, the sword reacts almost autonomously like a highly sensitive, legally aggressive compass needle.
It seeks out and strikes the dark energy, powered by Jan's subconscious cultivation.
That's right.
Ning is absolutely blown away by this. I mean, he drops the act of being asleep, jumps up and tells Jan he saw the whole thing. He asks what that incredible light was.
And Jan, realizing the secret is fully out, is surprisingly casual about it.
He says, "Since we are friends now, I won't hide it. I am a sword master. If that stone window hadn't been in the way to absorb some of the impact, the demon would be completely dead right now. But at least it is severely wounded."
Jan even uncovers the box and lets Ning look closely at the tiny glowing sword.
And naturally, Ning is overwhelmed with awe. He's a mortal who has just seen the ultimate hidden power of the universe, and he immediately wants it. He begs Jan to teach him this magical art.
I mean, can you blame him?
Not at all. You just survived a guaranteed demon assassination because your socially awkward roommate's magical pocket knife turned into a homing laser. Of course you want to learn how to do that.
But Jan refuses. And his reason for refusing is deeply tied to the philosophical underpinnings of the entire cosmology.
What does he say?
He tells Ning, with your righteousness and your unyielding integrity, you actually possess the perfect moral foundation to practice this art. You have the discipline.
But there's a massive but.
Yes, but, Jan says, you are a person destined for wealth and status in the mortal world. You are bound for the halls of bureaucracy and family life. You are not meant for this lonely path.
That is such a fascinating, profound rejection. Jan is essentially saying, you are absolutely a good enough person to be a magical superhero, but your cosmic destiny is to be a successful, upper-middle-class bureaucrat.
It perfectly highlights a fundamental dichotomy in this cultural framework. The path of the swordmaster, the path to immortality or esoteric power, requires extreme detachment.
It requires total isolation, right?
Exactly, severing all ties with worldly success, family, and comfort. Jan wanders alone, sleeping in abandoned, haunted ruins, possessing nothing but a broken box and a flying sword.
Whereas Ning, despite his strict morals, is deeply embedded in the human social fabric.
Right. He has a family, he is taking state exams to become an official, he is bound for societal success and material wealth.
The story is clearly asserting that one cannot hold both ultimate esoteric power and ultimate worldly success. They require entirely divergent destinies.
They absolutely do.
So Ning accepts this. He doesn't get to learn magic, but he did survive the night. And because he survived, thanks to Jan's protective aura, he is now in a position to fulfill a promise he made to Xiaoqian.
This is the moment the story completely shifts gears, moving out of horror and action and into something entirely different.
During her emotional confession the night before, Xiaoqian had pleaded with Ning. She told him that she was drowning in a dark, bitter sea, unable to reach the shore.
She begged him to take her bones away from the cursed temple grounds and bury them somewhere safe,
effectively severing her physical tie to the demon's domain and freeing her from its control.
She called this act a second creation, a total spiritual rebirth.
And Ning, being the ultimate man of his word, promised to do it. She gave him the specific coordinates. Look for the solitary white poplar tree with a crow's nest on top, north of the temple.
So, as Ning prepares to pack up and leave the temple, having actually finished his exams, he goes out into the desolate, overgrown graveyard.
He finds the white poplar, he spots the crow's nest, and he digs up her remains.
He carefully packs them into a box, and when people ask, he simply tells them he's transporting his sister's bones back to their hometown.
And before he hits the road, Yan Shixia gives him a parting gift. Since Ning can't learn the sword magic, Yan gives him the old, worn-out leather bag that he used to keep the flying sword in.
He tells Ning, "This is a sword bag. Keeping it with you will ward off ghosts and demons."
Let's consider the mechanics of this gift. How does an empty leather bag offer protection?
The bag has housed the flying sword for years. Over that time, it has absorbed massive amounts of residual yang energy and martial intent from the sword.
It is essentially highly irradiated with spiritual deterrent.
Yes, it acts as a vital protective talisman that will allow Ning to travel safely and, more importantly, it will protect his home from spiritual intrusion.
Which brings us to arguably the most surreal transition in the story. Ning gets back to his home in Zhejiang. His personal study faces out toward the wilderness, so he respectfully buries Xiaoqian's bones right outside his window.
He pours a small ceremonial cup of water on the fresh grave, says a little prayer, hoping she finds peace and isn't bullied by other wandering spirits.
He turns to walk back inside, and suddenly he hears a voice behind him say, "Wait for me, let's walk together."
He turns around, and there is Xiaoqian, but she isn't a wispy, translucent apparition floating in the mist.
The narrative emphasizes her solid physical presence. In the broad daylight, she is described as radiantly beautiful, her skin glowing, her delicate feet touching the ground.
To the naked eye, she looks entirely human.
She thanks him profoundly, saying his integrity is so vast that dying 10 times wouldn't be enough to repay him. And then she makes an incredible request. She asks to come inside, meet his parents, and serve his family.
This is where the narrative fully commits to a domestic drama of integration.
Think about what is happening here. It's like discovering a refugee from a completely different dimension, feeling deeply responsible for them, and deciding to secretly move them into your family's closed ecosystem.
Yeah, you walk through the front door with a breathtakingly beautiful supernatural entity, and your elderly mother is absolutely, understandably, terrified out of her mind.
The mother's reaction is entirely grounded in the mundane reality of her life. Ning brings this stunning woman into the house, casually announces, "This is Xiaoqian," and the mother is too shocked to even formulate a sentence.
It's severely complicated by the fact that Ning already has a wife, though his wife has been bedridden with a chronic long-term illness for years.
The mother is terrified of the disruption. What will this ghost do to her sick daughter-in-law? Will she drain her son's life force?
But Xiaoqian approaches this domestic crisis with the exact same systematic, intelligent dedication she used when she was navigating the demon's traps.
Except now, instead of using seduction or manipulation, she uses flawless, undeniable, filial piety.
She immediately gets to work. She throws herself on the ground, weeping, and pledges to serve the family forever to repay Ning's ultimate kindness.
When the mother remains hesitant and fearful, Xiaoqian doesn't argue or push back. She simply says, "If you don't trust me to be your daughter-in-law, at least let me serve you as a sister to your son."
And she just starts doing everything.
She goes straight to the kitchen and cooks the meals. She helps the mother wash up and dress in the morning. She sews, she sweeps, she cleans.
She anticipates the mother's needs before the mother even voices them. She acts like a devoted daughter who has lived in that house her entire life.
It is a masterful performance of perfect Confucian domesticity. By flawlessly fulfilling the ideal, highly structured role of a devoted daughter and servant, she slowly deconstructs the mother's fear through sheer utility and kindness.
The mother eventually realizes Xiaoqian is making her life infinitely easier and warmer.
But despite all this domestic harmony, there is a massive glowing obstacle in the house, a boundary that Xiaoqian absolutely cannot cross.
A leather sword bag.
Right. The old, worn-out bag Yan Chixia gave Ning. Ning has it hanging up in his private study, and Xiaoqian is terrified of it.
The first time she tries to enter the study to see Ning, she physically recoils. She paces anxiously outside the door, entirely unable to cross the threshold.
She explains to Ning that the sword energy radiating from the room is physically terrifying to her. It is a brilliant detail.
Even though Xiaoqian is morally good, and her intentions are pure, she is still fundamentally constructed of Yan energy. She is a spirit.
The sword bag constantly radiates a fierce, indiscriminate Yang energy, a martial righteousness that doesn't care if a ghost is good or evil. It simply repels all spiritual entities like a localized force field.
So Ning, realizing the problem, takes the bag down and moves it to a different, isolated room.
And once the magical radiation is gone, Xiaoqian finally comes into the study. But they don't do anything scandalous or romantic.
They sit together by the candlelight, and she asks him to help her read and understand Buddhist sutras. Specifically, she wants to study the Lenjin Jing, or the Shurangama Sutra.
This is an incredibly significant mechanism for her development. Why the Shurangama Sutra?
Because in Buddhist tradition, this specific text is deeply associated with dispelling illusions, overcoming demonic interference, and clarifying the fundamental nature of the mind.
How does reading a book actually help a ghost, though?
It isn't just reading a book, it is a profound spiritual exercise. By studying and reciting this specific text with Ning, a man of immense yang virtue Xiaoqian is actively engaging in a process of spiritual alchemy.
The sonic vibration of the sutra, the focused intention of the study, and the presence of Ning's righteous energy all work together to slowly burn away the lingering spiritual trauma and demonic taint of her past.
She is literally rewiring her spiritual matrix, realigning herself from a creature of yin towards the yang reality of the human world.
So it's not just studying, it's active, rigorous spiritual therapy. She comes in every single evening to do this work. And then she leaves right before he goes to sleep, maintaining absolute propriety and boundaries.
And slowly, over months, you start to see actual physical changes. The narrative carefully notes the passage of time and the resulting physical densification of Xiaoqian.
At first, she didn't eat or drink anything human, but after half a year of this domestic integration and sutra study, she begins to consume thin gruel.
She's absorbing what they call shenqi.
Which means living breath or vitality, right?
Exactly, shenqi. By existing in a thriving human household, breathing the same air, sharing in their daily rhythms, and consuming human food, she is slowly replacing her ghostly emptiness with physical, living substance.
She is becoming more corporeal, more firmly anchored in the physical world.
And her behavior completely wins everyone over. The mother completely falls in love with her. She stops treating her like a scary spirit and treats her exactly like her own daughter.
They actually reach a point where they forget she's a ghost entirely. But then a major structural obstacle hits the family. Ning's bedridden wife finally passes away.
The death of the primary wife creates a severe vacuum in the family structure. The mother secretly wants Yeokian to marry Ning and officially take the role of the primary wife.
Because she loves her.
Right, but the mother is paralyzed by a very traditional, deeply ingrained fear. She believes a ghost, no matter how solid she seems, cannot produce a living heir.
And in this societal framework, securing the family line through male heirs is the absolute paramount duty.
So the mother is deeply stressed. Ning is quiet and respectful of the mourning period, and Zhaoqian immediately senses the tension in the house.
And she addresses it head-on with an argument that I think is the most philosophically wild, profound moment in the entire story.
It is a remarkable moment of cosmological debate. Let's examine exactly what she says. Zhaoqian approaches the mother and says, "Children are granted by heaven."
She then makes a bold prophecy.
She says that according to Ning's inherent destiny, his fate as recorded in the heavenly registers, because of his immense virtue, he is unequivocally meant to have 3 highly successful sons who will elevate the family name.
And then she delivers her core thesis. She says her physical status as a ghost simply cannot override heavenly fate.
That is such a massive flex of cosmic logic.
Yeah.
She's basically arguing that the universe's destiny outranks basic supernatural biology.
She's saying, look, the heavenly bureaucracy has already decided Ning gets 3 sons because he's a good man. It does not matter if his wife is a human, a rehabilitated ghost, or a wooden chair. If heaven mandates he gets sons, the mechanics of reality will bend to make sure he gets sons.
It reveals a fascinating, rigorous hierarchy in the cosmology of the world. Biology, physical reality, and even the rules of the supernatural are entirely subordinate to moral destiny.
Because Ning has proven his absolute unyielding virtue, heaven has decreed a specific reward.
Zhaoqian understands that by aligning herself completely with his virtue, she becomes the chosen vehicle for that destiny, effectively transcending any physical limitations of her ghostly origins.
The mother is completely stunned and convinced by this irrefutable logic. So, she agrees, Ning and Zhaoqian are officially married.
And they don't hide it in a secret, quiet ceremony. They throw a massive, lavish banquet. They invite all their extended relatives, and Zhaoqian comes out to greet them in full, resplendent bridal makeup.
And how do the relatives react? They don't react with horror or suspicion. They react with absolute awe.
The narrative notes that looking at her, they didn't for a second suspect she was a ghost. They genuinely suspected she was a celestial fairy descended from the heavens.
She integrates into the wider social circle seamlessly. She even paints incredibly beautiful, refined pictures of orchids and plum blossoms to give as gifts, which the relatives treasure deeply.
She has achieved absolute perfect domestic harmony and societal acceptance.
But this is a story from Liao Sai, which means just when everything is absolutely perfect, the past literally comes flying out of the dark to violently hunt you down.
We reach the culmination of her transformation and the final test of her new reality. One day, Zhaoqian is sitting peacefully by the window, and she suddenly looks profoundly anxious.
A deep fear washes over her. She turns to Ning and asks a very surprising, urgent question. She asks, "Where is the leather sword bag?"
The exact same bag she was so terrified of that Ning had to banish it to another room.
Ning is confused and asks her why on earth she wants it now.
Her answer is the ultimate proof of her evolution. She tells him, "I have absorbed enough living breath enough Shanqi that I am no longer afraid of its energy."
So we have to ask, does this mean Zhaoqian has essentially leveled up? Has she absorbed so much human vitality that she is fundamentally human now, making her immune to the magical ward that repels spirits?
Or is she just terrified of something much, much worse, and she's choosing the lesser of two pains?
It is a synthesis of both. Her prolonged exposure to a deeply righteous household, her intense study of the Shurangama Sutra, and her physical integration into human society have spiritually densified her.
She is no longer purely a fragile creature of yin. She has real substance. However, her urgency is undeniably driven by a far greater terror approaching.
Because she looks at Ning and says, For the last 3 days, my heart has been pounding continuously, uncontrollably. I believe the demon from Jinhua has finally tracked me down.
She knows her old master has crossed the country to drag her back to the darkness.
Ning immediately goes and retrieves the old, dusty leather bag. Xiaoqian takes it and examines it closely.
She looks at the incredibly worn-out material and shudders, saying, "This is what the sword immortal used to hold human heads. It is so broken and worn, I don't know how many things he has killed with it. Even looking at it today makes my skin crawl."
But despite her lingering physical revulsion, she knows what it can do. She hangs the dusty bag right above the main door to their room.
And the next night, they sit together in the quiet room by candlelight, waiting for the nightmare to arrive.
The tension is palpable. The ultimate domestic sanctuary, a space of warmth and humanity, is about to be invaded by the ultimate chaotic horror of the wilderness.
And then the silence breaks. Suddenly, something heavy drops down from the night sky, landing loudly outside the door like a massive, unnatural bird.
Xiaoqian is absolutely terrified. She retreats and hides behind the curtains. Ning, heart-pounding, stares unblinking at the door.
We must visualize the horror of this entity, as the narrative is highly specific about its appearance.
It is the stuff of nightmares. The creature is described as looking like a yaksha, a fearsome, hyper-violent demonic entity from Buddhist mythology.
It has eyes that literally flash and crackle like lightning in the dark, and a thick, blood-red tongue hanging out of its mouth. It radiates pure, predatory violence.
It approaches the closed door, but it hesitates. It paces back and forth outside.
It clearly senses the intense, latent danger radiating from the room, the lingering yang energy of the Swordmaster.
But eventually, its starving predatory drive and its rage overcome its caution. It slowly creeps closer to the door, reaches up with its massive claws, and attempts to violently tear down the old leather bag.
And this is the climax of the entire journey. The moment the Yaksha's claw touches the fabric of the bag, the old, worn-out leather makes a loud, deafening crack.
It violently, instantly expands to the size of a large basket.
The physical transformation of the mundane object is shocking and instantaneous.
And out of this massively expanded bag, a ghostly, indistinct figure bursts halfway out. It doesn't use a sword, it just reaches out, grabs the horrifying, blood-tongued Yaksha, violently yanks the massive demon entirely inside the bag, and then absolute silence.
The bag instantly shrinks back down to its normal, sad, empty, incredibly mundane size, just hanging quietly on the door hook like absolutely nothing happened.
It happens in a fraction of a heartbeat. The sudden, overwhelming, chaotic violence of the demon is met with an equally sudden, absolute containment.
Ning is stunned, frozen. Xiaoqian slowly comes out from behind the curtain, sees the quiet, small bag, and rejoices, crying out, "We are safe."
And then they do the bravest, most insanely curious thing ever. They take the bag down from the door and actually look inside to see what happened to the giant Yaksha.
And what exactly do they find inside?
Nothing. There is no monster, there is no blood, there are no bones or claws. They look inside the small bag and all they find is a few buckets worth of clear water.
We have to stop and deeply analyze the profound mechanics and symbolism of this moment. You have this terrifying entity, a Yaksha, which acts as a symbol of ultimate terror, brute violence, and malicious, chaotic intent.
It is a solid, horrifying physical threat.
And the magical defense of the bag doesn't just hack it to pieces or blow it up, it dissolves it. It utilizes an alchemical reduction. It reduces this absolute complex terror into clear, formless, fundamentally harmless water.
It is the ultimate neutralization. The monster isn't just defeated in a fight, its very physical and spiritual nature is unmade. It goes from a bloodthirsty, lightning-eyed demon to something you could literally wash your floor with.
It speaks to the deepest philosophical core of the cosmology. True righteousness and profound spiritual power do not meet chaotic violence with equal opposing violence. They subsume it. They encompass it.
Drawing on Taoist principles of water and emptiness, the vast containing yin of the bag neutralizes the violent, aggressive energy of the demon, returning it to a state of absolute nullity and purity, perfectly represented by the clear water.
It is such a poetic, beautifully unexpected ending to a monster fight.
And it is necessary because it allows the narrative to conclude on a note of absolute permanent resolution. The threat is not just repelled to return another day, it is permanently erased from existence.
Which leads us smoothly into the epilogue of the story. With the demon permanently gone, Xiaoqian and Ning are completely free to live their lives without looking over their shoulders. And absolutely everything Xiaoqian prophesied about heaven's will comes true.
Ning goes on to successfully pass his advanced state exams, entering the bureaucracy and becoming an official. He and Zhaoqian have a son together.
Later on, as was entirely customary and expected for successful men of his high status in that specific era, he takes concubines, and through them, he has 2 more sons.
Fulfilling the precise prophecy of the 3 sons granted by Heaven's ledger.
Exactly. And the narrative makes sure to note that all 3 of these sons grow up to become highly successful officials with incredibly strong, unblemished reputations.
The Ning family line is not only secure, it flourishes immensely. Zhaoqian's impossible transition from a victimized, enslaved ghost in a ruined temple to the respected foundational matriarch of a prestigious, thriving human lineage is complete.
It is an incredibly satisfying full-circle ending.